It's book club day. It's like my favorite day of the whole month. So excited.
Well, thanks, man. It was nice meeting you.
Hannah, you got something going on, man. Oh, we got you muted. Yeah, so welcome to book club day. We were just saying how we've got this whole beautiful, now that Zach put together agenda list of all of our Let's Chats and all of the topics that we're going to turn into a library for you guys by linking in the videos so that you can just go play them. Your team can access them. So I don't know why we never did that before. It was Ray's idea. You can thank Ray for that later. We'll get that ready for y'all though. Send it out. Should we kick off book club? Let's get this party started.
Yeah, let's get it started.
Get it going.
Let's do it. Love it. Okay. So super short book. It's like probably an hour and a half. I don't know, read. So hopefully we've read it. But if you've not read it, we are going to talk today about takeaways, actionable takeaways for your business. So just real quick so we know what we're working with. Hannah, Angie, Emily, read it, didn't read it? Read it. Okay, good. And I think Hannah said she read it too. So I don't know where Hannah is. And Ray may pop in, but she's getting her hair done, so I don't know. So let's talk about it. So let's just go in order. Takeaways, ahas, thoughts on how we can implement into our teams. Let's maybe start with the first golden bracelet.
Been a while since I read it, so I'm like, need to refresh.
I'm flipping through what I highlighted.
You're in the right place.
I do just want to get it out of the way, though. Like the format was super annoying. Like the fairy godmother nonsense and the golf. I'm like, how many of these 90 minutes were wasted on nonsense storytelling? This is like, if I want to read a story, I'll go get a novel that's won an award. Like, this is
that is classic Ken Blanchard. Like, if you read 1 Minute Manager, if you read Our Iceberg is Melting, which is Penguins, which is a great book about handling crisis, all stories.
They're all parables.
Yeah.
It was pretty dated though. I was like, golf, really? It's like pretty played out, like stereotype that all these guys are going golfing together. I'm like, I don't know. Okay, that's fine. And then the driver has cassette tapes in his taxi cab.
Even the companies, it's like grocery store, like parts and gas station.
So there you go, Angie. You can rewrite it. You can create the updated version of Raving Films.
I don't mind the case studies in a book, like if they do a case study, but the fairy godmother time travel, like, I
have to agree with you with that on Angie. I kind of skipped some of those sections because I'm like, it's not really adding to my story here.
Yeah. But I think that 1% thing, because especially right now, we're looking towards 2022, and rainmakers all are suddenly thinking big, and they have, want to come up with all these like crazy goals and everything. I think that 1% thing of like, okay, let's improve, but let's not try to blow everything out of the water. So
it is a great point he makes. He's like, and they spend a lot of time, but I think that's the thing they go back and forth on most in the book. I'm like, why are they still talking about this? They move pretty fast for everything else. But I think it was good because they're really making the 2 points, right? One, like improve, and then second, make sure you can hit that mark really well before you take another step forward. So don't accidentally say like, we'll wash your windows, and then you can't wash their windows. Like, make sure it's one thing, like a baby step at a time. I appreciated that, especially in the world we all live in, which is some visionaries be asking us to do some ridiculous stuff like we're fairy godfathers, godmothers, whatever. Yeah. What did you think about the first one? So I'm dying to hear everyone's perspective on like the first message she receives is decide what you want. As far as customer service. Yeah.
Can I jump in before we go into that one?
Yeah.
Because what I read differently than I did the first time when I read this book was page 11 and 12. And 11 is, it's just real quick. It just says bottom line, people expect bad goods and rude service. And I think that's where what you were saying, Megan, about doing something really well and nailing it, it's because you're already like you're already behind, right? They're already expecting that they're just not going to get great service and they're going to be talking to somebody who can't help them. So with that in mind, I think is where it really adds that pressure to do more. And then I like that no worse than the competition, because I do think we look to copy, which is good, especially in the KW world, because we have a great sharing community. And yet I wonder how much of us are just meeting that standard and not going above and beyond. And with the pace and just speed of looking at social media and the way that marketing works these days, I think you can just look very plain and like the average real estate team across the board because everyone's doing it. So I like those 2 pages, 11 and 12 right off the bat. I read definitely.
That's a great point, Zach. I really thought about that rereading this, like how you just expect to be abused or like our abusive customer service experiences. So this last week, my husband and I were like, it'd be fun. Let's just take a spontaneous trip to take the kids somewhere. So we hopped in the car. I found an Airbnb that would let us reserve it with 2 hours notice. Okay, so this is a company. It's not a person that owns a bunch of condos in Dallas. So I got on, I reserved it, confirmed it 7 minutes later. So this is a great juxtaposition of being abused and having like a raving fan experience. 7 minutes later, I got an email from this company. Now there's like 7 of their condos in the same building available for rent and they're all the same. Okay, so first you need to know that. So I get an email from this company on Airbnb saying, gosh, someone just after you asked for this unit and they can stay an extra night. So now it's already confirmed, right? So unless you tell us you can stay an extra night, we'll have to give it to this other person. 7 minutes in, right? So they're just baiting me to say, oh my gosh, I need it. I'm going to be there in 2 hours. I need an extra night. I ignore them, like totally ignore them because I think it's shady business practice. Then they email me like, well, you didn't, like you have to fill out this form in order to come. So, okay, fill it out. Then they email me a second one. Now you need to agree. It's like a 7-page agreement telling me all of the ways they will charge me money if I don't we've got a noise decibel reader. If you're louder than our noise decibel, it will charge you money. We've got a camera monitoring how many people enter the room. And if you have too many people, we're going to charge you extra money. Like it's intense. I'm like, this is the most, like, I'm just trying to take my kids to Dallas to the Perot Museum. Like you guys, this is like too many pages. Time goes on. I don't get instructions. Like we're trying to leave for Dallas. I text them. I'm like, I just need to know how to get into this condo. I've reserved it, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, let me get back to you. At this point, I'm like, done. So I call him. I get a guy. I'm like, I'm looking, he's clearly overseas. I'm looking for Angel. Figured she was probably overseas anyway because of her name. Looking for Angel. She's like supposed to be giving me this code. He's like, that's me. I'm like, okay. You answered your name was Bob, but all right. I can't get into this condo, right? So he's like, oh, you didn't fill out all the paperwork. I did like an hour ago. So that's all done. He's like, oh, okay, well, here, I'll send it to you. So he finally sends it to me. We get in the car, we go, we arrive there. It's midnight. This was a last minute trip. So we arrive at midnight to this condo. The codes don't work. Like we were trying to get in this condo. The codes don't work. I'm like, it's midnight.
With kids at night.
Kids, yes. And like in the city, you can't get in. So I call this guy and he doesn't answer. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to like sleep in our car. He calls me right back though. So that was good. And he's like, yes. And I'm like, your codes don't work. He was like, hold on. Are you doing this code? I'm like, yes. He's like, did you try it in both lockboxes? I'm like, yes. He's like, oh, try this code instead. I'm like, doesn't work either. He's like, try this code instead. Doesn't work either. Finally, he gives me a code that works. Okay, so we're like 3 codes in at this point. Terrible, right? Like, and now I'm in, it's been like 45 extra minutes. My kids are like sleeping in the hallway on the floor. Like, it's just this whole like nightmare. We're in this, finally in this Airbnb, like total abuse of the client, right? Just total abuse. Then on the way back home, we're like, you know what? I've never been to the silos, the Magnolia silos. We're going to drive right by there. We'll stop. They're having a big fair. We'll let our kids get out and ride the merry-go-round. So we stop at the Magnolia silos on the way there. We are greeted by 3 greeters at a blocked off entrance so that walkers have the whole street. I'm not even joking. We're like, oh my gosh, we're going to have to pay. We didn't realize that. We're getting out our wallets. And they're like, welcome to Magnolia's. We have a map of the venue for you. Here's where you can take your children to see the merry-go-round and go this way to see the vendor booths. And right inside, you'll find our Christmas fair. Welcome. We hope you have the best experience. We're always here if you need anything. Like, they're not charging me money. They just want to welcome me to the site, right? Like, so already great. You go in, like, it's the cleanest. It looks like you're in Mayberry. It's like fake. It's like so clean and perfect and pristine. Everyone's telling you hi and greeting you and like pointing out things. Kids are just like running around on the lawn. It's like ridiculous. There's live music happening. All the shops are well labeled. The bathroom's immaculate. Looks like something out of their TV show. It's like ridiculous. Like total juxtaposition where we felt really welcomed versus where we felt abused. And the whole time I was there, all I could think about was this book. I was like, man, like raving fan of the second one, and first one, total client abuse. And where are our people feeling abused by practices we just think are protectionary, right? Sign this contract, sign this agreement. Like, no, you can't get in. You have to go here. Like an incredible juxtaposition for me. So that was my two tales of two stories overlap.
Yeah. The thing that I was thinking about in terms of all this stuff was just that, like, also the length of our interaction with people is so much longer than with other examples, like even some of the examples in the book, which is a great opportunity because we do have the opportunity to really impress them because we are interacting with them for, you know, sometimes months. But we also have so much more opportunity to really screw it up. So yeah.
Yeah, there's so many examples where it feels like companies used to earn the right of their customers and you would love going there because they earn that right. And it very much feels now like essentially you have to earn the right to shop at their store, right? It's like if you don't ask questions, you ring yourself out and we're good. And you have no returns, be no problem. And you'll love shopping with us. But you have an issue, it's like completely different. It's crazy.
Yeah. But something as small as like just people being happy can make, like what you were saying, just their demeanor and made a difference in the interaction. Like my friend brought her son to get a cast this morning and she brought him to a children's hospital and she was like, everyone smiled at me. Almost to the point of it being weird. They were so happy to be at work, like even the parking attendant. And she was like, but I love them. Like I will always bring my child to the children's hospital because everyone smiled at me, you know? I don't know. It's just interesting.
See, and the cynic in me, when I go places like that, I'm like, it all seems too forced and fake. And like, I start going on Glassdoor and looking at the employee reviews. I'm like, they must secretly be really bad and abusive to their employees. Like, what's the real story, you know?
Yeah. It's like the Disney syndrome.
Yeah, you want to talk about a place you go, yeah.
Angie, that is so funny that you say that because I could care less if it's a facade or not because it's for me, right?
Yeah, see, I'm like, I care that the people I do business with are good people. And so like I don't go to chain restaurants. I go to restaurants where I know who the owners are and I know what their reputation is and, you know, like that kind of stuff. So
yeah.
And it's like, I heard, oh, you went to Magnolia, and I'm like, ooh, they're bad people. Like, they're bad people. Like, and you're like saying, oh, it's this like wonderful thing. And I'm like, yeah, but everybody I know that's ever been from Waco talks about how fake and phony and diabolical they are. So like,
I'm with Emily. I think the demeanor does make a big difference for me, even if the experience is bad, because I think it goes back to what this book said, right? I think I just expect it, that I'm like, it's not going to probably live up to my expectation, but if you can at least be nice about it, I feel much better.
Well, and I think it's like to bring it back to the book, you know, the point of like deciding what you want. Hudson, our like Rainmaker, talks about this. Like he's like, we are not trying to be the Ritz-Carlton. We're trying to be like the Marriott. Like we're not trying to be the Motel 6, but we're trying to be the Marriott. You know, and so he says that all the time. And like that, but that's knowing who you are, knowing who your people are. We know that there are people who want the Marriott. And they aren't looking for the Ritz-Carlton. They don't expect Ritz-Carlton service, but they also expect better than Motel 6. And so So it's also just like knowing who your people are. Like Megan is a Magnolia person, apparently, but Angie isn't, and that's okay. Like,
Marriott person though. The whole time Megan was telling her story, I was like, you could have just gone to a Residence Inn. I'm titanium with Marriott, and I love it. Like,
No, the whole thing was like we were right next to the museum. I was like, I don't just walk my little stroller over the museum, like we had a plan.
the whole time I was just like, why didn't she go to a Marriott?
but yeah, like deciding who you want to be, who you're like, who your vision is, what your vision is, and like what your goal is, and then hitting that and not trying to be something else. I don't know. I think is really important.
And deciding who your customer is, right? Because not everybody's your customer. Like I loved that message.
Yeah.
Like when you're a new agent, you're going to work with anybody because you just need business. Yeah, by the time you're a team, you get to decide who your customer is, and you get to decide who you don't want to be in business with.
Mm-hmm.
And I think with the agent, that comes in a lot too, because we have agents that love investors, we have agents that hate investors, and like kind of understanding with those clients who they need to be working with.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the macaroni story, right? So that's me, right? Because that's this life stage I'm in. I got a 4 and a 2-year-old. So Magnolia wins with me because there's yard games everywhere. We didn't buy a thing, but our kids ran around and were like entertained for 2 hours, and everyone was super nice to them. Now, what
you're a Raving fan. Like you're telling all of us to go there.
Like 4 years ago, would I have cared about that? No, I would have been like, it's obnoxiously filled with children. Like, I'm not even lying. I would have been like, they're sticky and they touched me. And like, like, I don't understand. It was terrible. But now I'm like, I need the waiter to promise my kid he's going to make the perfect mac and cheese. Cause I'm that client now. Right. So knowing who you are trying to attract or like keep in your space, I think that's so critical. Yeah.
Well, and I don't mean to be rude, but I think that you guys like coaches are awesome, but sometimes you guys recommend things that are like not for our people. And we have to be like, that's like, we don't have kids. That's not a thing, so if you're recommending stuff with kids, like our people have dogs or no kids, and no kids, and they're all young professionals, and they're like Angie, they're really cynical, and they're like really skeptical. And so we have to like cater to that. And so knowing even like what advice is for you and knowing what advice is like, that's not us, that's someone else. And like, they're going to do an excellent job with that, but like, that's not who we are.
And you can do that, Emily, because the vision, right? You're clear. Like what's our vision of experience we want to provide. Like our database is wine drinkers with dog owners. It's not, macaroni and cheese.
Yeah.
Love that insight. I was obsessed when you said, we live the vision. This is on page 33 of my version. I don't know what version you guys have, but it's like an ancient book, so who knows. But it says, the vision says carnations and make it a joy to shop here. It doesn't say no flowers. Sorry, we can't help you. And don't come shopping if you've got children. Like he's clear that both what he wants and what he doesn't want. And I thought that was a really great call out. Like, why do you give everybody a carnation? That's the vision. Carnations and make it a joy. It's not get out of here with your sticky children's fingers.
Well, one thing I took action on was that monkey thing. Monkeys have to be shot or fed. And I was like, oh, like, what is my monkey? It's like, oh, it's tenant leases, because our policy is we don't touch tenant leases and the agents are supposed to do it all if they want to mess with it. And yet I end up doing all of them because they do it all wrong, and I spend longer chasing them down trying to get it all right. And so, yes, we did in the sales meeting today do a whole training on how to do leases. And so, but I was like, that I keep feeding that monkey and I really need to shoot it. So like,
That's great. One thing that's consistent throughout the book is they talk extensively about how the people who fulfill the client experience vision are rewarded, either financially or with promotions, whatever. How do you guys play that out in your own teams?
question. I mean, I think we do look for those 5-star reviews, and you know, those are the people that do provide excellent service both to the clients and to the agents, right? Because that's also a big one, like on the operations side, is if our agents are super happy with our transaction coordinator, then you know, you get the promotion. So it's just like taking in both client and agent feedback.
That's great. How do y'all do that? Do you survey your agents?
We don't officially survey them. He did when we have like team awards every year. And one of them is like Rookie of the Year and he won it. You know, we have people vote on it. And everyone was really impressed with him. And so he received a promotion as a result of like everyone's feedback, but surveying the agents is in one of my goals for the quarter, to start doing every quarter, to reflect on like the service that the ops team is providing to the agents. All of us is providing to the agents.
My agents call and tell me weekly, like they just call and tell me, they were like, you know what, it took her 2 hours to answer my Slack message this week, or you know what, this week everything was perfect. And so I don't know, apparently somehow I've created that message that you need to tell me everything. So
Yeah,
That's great though. They talk in the book, right, about how silence is like the worst feedback, because it probably means they're unhappy, but they're just not, they expect to be unhappy. So they're like maybe even shopping for another opportunity, but they don't tell you. So the fact that they'd say like she's 2 hours late means they care still, they're engaged still, like they want that improvement. So I think that's wonderful that you've got that relationship built.
We also do team high fives every weekly meeting, where people like write in like positive things about each other, and then we read them at the beginning of the meeting. And I can also see and tally up. I tally up who has gotten the most. I know that that's bad, but I mean, it's bad because it feels like I'm counting praises, but it's really interesting to see like, who do people go out of their way to write something about internally, not just like client
Do you
review.
reward that at all? Are you like, you got the most high fives, you get a donut? I don't know what.
No, I just tell Hudson about it.
one of the schools that I worked at, the principal had a thing, and there was like a gratitude box. And so you would put things in there, and then at every faculty meeting, they'd read them all, but then he would draw one or two, and there'd be some kind of prize for, you know, a gift card or, you know, something. But that also got to be really funny, because the teams that really cared about it, they would all write like 15 gratitudes for each other, like to up their chances of getting drawn. And so.
Side note, Emily's story where she was talking there just reminded me of the 5 levels of leadership, because John Maxwell talks about that, right? About figuring out the title doesn't matter, but who's the real influence and leader. So my guess is that's really great data, because whoever's probably getting the most accolades is who is actually convincing, right? Like they're the ones that's probably giving out advice and influencing the direction. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, even among the agents, it's really interesting to see like them praising each other for like the support and advice they give to one another, and seeing like who's being a supportive team member.
So Emily, is there anybody on your team that doesn't get praise?
There are a few that don't get very much. I mean, some of it is like how long they've been with us, right? You have to take that into account since we started. But there is usually, there's a couple of agents who have barely any thank yous.
Yeah, that's like page 62. Again, if you've got this version of the book, he says, you learn that silence is a message and usually not a good one. And I wrote, ouch, like when we don't get a review, when no one says anything nice, like if there's no feedback at all, like sometimes we're like, oh yeah, no negative feedback, but maybe it's a better way to think about it is like no one is caring enough to actually do that. Like at the worst, we have an unhappy client, and at the best, we just simply don't have a raving fan. Like we've got someone satisfied, but not really bought into the client experience.
I think the opposite would be true too. I'd have to think. I'd wonder what the statistics are, because I would think if someone took the time to report a bad review, you at least are still, I would think, have somewhat of a chance to have dialogue or a conversation. Whereas opposed if someone says nothing with that silence, more than likely they're probably just over it and they're just going to go buy it from somewhere else.
Yeah, I think that's I think they kind of are trying to kind of point that out. And then they even said like that gas guy who just drove off, he's like, well, I assumed you're charging me for gas and a clean window and you didn't clean my windows, so I assumed it was free. Like, wow, that's like extreme, but at least he said something, you know, versus just being silent. And then you'd have no room to figure out what your client was really upset about. Like you're still in the game, like Zach said, all of that.
Yeah, we just switched CRMs, and I've been telling this I told this to one of my ops team members today. I was like, the agents who are complaining every day to me about something in the CRM, I actually am really happy about, because it means that they're actually using it. The people who have not called me once angry, I know haven't touched it. Like they're just avoiding. And those are the ones I'm like, I have to go call them and I have to go reach out to them. I'm more concerned about them than I am the people who are like, this sucks, this doesn't work.
One of the things we have done is at the end of our call every morning, we stay on, and the agents are all supposed to be updating their pipelines and all of that. But I and our director of lead gen stay on. So then when they're like, I can't figure out how to do this, it's like we have that kind of workshop moment and everybody else that's on there sees it. And that was one of the things that really helped us when transitioning systems.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea. Yeah, just making yourself available.
Well, just having it, like I said, as soon as we finish our one thing, okay, everybody go update your pipeline. So it's like, okay, this is the time to do it. And then we stay on, and like now they don't really need us anymore. But again, that expectation is that you update it every day, and like, here's when you do it. So.
No, that's great.
Yeah. I wanted to point out too, because I had it in my notes, but the gap I see a lot, or that I felt throughout and like looking at the stories, is when you look at the deciding what you want, you're creating that vision, right, of perfection centered, like what's the client experience going to be like? There seems to be a gap sometimes of then discover what the customer wants, because we'll get so tied to our own ideas that I feel like the book should have said, do that, have a vision of what it looks like, and make sure you're okay with the outcome and the results, because it may not be what you want and then you need to change it, right? Like, so example, if the Marriott is not producing the results you want, then don't be so tied to that decision that we change it. A great story like that instantly popped in mind right all over it is the Febreze story. And if you haven't read it, look up that article on Febreze, because it was a complete flop in 1996, because their vision of how the product was used was completely wrong. And they did nothing except change the messaging after they examined it. And then it became like the household name we know today, but it almost went out of business because of their vision, and they were so tied to it. And it was completely wrong on how the clients actually wanted to, well, customers use Febreze.
Mm-hmm.
So I think reflection, right? Just reflect as you move from that into discovering what the customer wants and being okay with the result or changing.
Jordan said something at Fall Masterminds that really struck me. He said, we all think we're in the sales business, but we're in the service business. right? We're all service companies. We're not sales companies. We're not selling houses. We're in the service business.
Mhm.
And I think because so much emphasis is put on the sales part of our teams, right? That's where our mind goes. Yeah, we're service companies.
That's so good. Yeah, it's a play on words. The MREA, Gary Keller in there actually talks about it and says, are you a listing agent? Are you a marketing agent? And you want to be a marketing agent for that exact reason, because your actual job is to market that property and the service. You're not really selling, right? Or just listing. We're in the marketing business.
I loved that towards the end. So like after the gas, they go to the gas station. They're talking about how customer experience is really just a system. So obviously I love that. And they talk about like, I love the data, but then I kept thinking about too, is like the role play Rumble coach. So much of this just is like struck home because they talk about, when we tell our team members to be friendly to customers, we actually help by training them in exactly what they can do to project a friendly image. So they're training them how to appear friendly. And then he goes on to say, our research shows friendly people talk about topics not directly connected with the business transaction at hand. So we train the team members to do that. Talking about things not related to the gasoline purchase is part of our customer service package. And I thought, man, know the data, build a system. Like these people are trained when to smile, how to use the name. Like if you go back and look at just the gasoline pumping station and to talk about something, like they're even trained, like here's where you would talk about something not related to gas. That is knowing what the data says about what your client wants and then giving them the tools to actually deliver the experience that you have envisioned there. I mean, that's deep. That is a system for how to appear friendly. Wild. Like, that's great.
So then if you look at the person on our operations team who's most involved with the client is our transaction coordinator. Mm-hmm. How many of our transaction coordinators never pick up the phone?
Yeah, I mean, that's been our kind of pivot, is that we're hiring more cyberbackers and building more automated tasks so that my TC and my listing manager spend a lot of time on the phone. Like that's a huge part of their job, is talking on the phone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then where you started it all, Angie, like how are we empowering? Because deliver +1 meant baby steps, but it also meant like exceed the expectation. So how are we empowering our TCs or our LCs to do that? You know, how are we giving them that flexibility that they talk about, in that section, in order to adapt if they need to? Like maybe it's a high D. He even says like sometimes it's clear the client driving in would be annoyed if we talk to them at all. And so, our people are trained to not just like blindly follow the system, because then it would be a rule, and it's not a rule. It's a system to deliver excellent client experience. They have permission to do what they need to do that. And how are we empowering our TCs and our LCs to deliver +1?
And giving them the training to do that too.
Mine, they don't necessarily just go do it, but they call me and they're like, oh, you know what, this client just got diagnosed with cancer, or this client this or that or whatever, what can I do? And some of it is that they're just young. Like the idea of like knowing how to order flowers was a whole thing we had to discuss and talk about. And how do you find a florist? And like, I mean, it was, wow, a life skill that I didn't realize needed a whole lesson, but it did. But, now I can say, okay, do this or do that, don't spend more than $75 or whatever. And then they'll go do it. And like, I know on one of these, my TC ended up taking a edible arrangement to these people because they were staying in an RV while their house was being built. And, so, I mean, I think they do that. Of course, then I got, our Pi Day emails went out, and I get an email from a client, well, why aren't you delivering them to us? And I was just like, okay, like.
Not in my service window, man.
I mean, we canceled our party and we're just doing delivery this year because of COVID. but now I'm scared that they're going to expect us to deliver every year. Like, what have we done? But yeah. I thought it was really interesting, the anecdote that he brought up. I don't know, my book, it's 95, but about the airlines, it kind of was connected to me. It's the deliver thing, but it's connected to also knowing what the customer wants. And so sometimes like giving them a little bit less, but like doing it well is better. You know, like the airline says that you can have a food option, but you know that you're probably just going to have to deal and get whatever they have left, is almost worse than just like not having the choice and knowing that you're going to have good coffee or whatever it is. Right. I don't know. I thought that was
agree with
really,
you. It's like an expectation setting, right? Like,
Mhm.
if you accept my expectation up here, I expect to be there. But if you accept my expectation here, then I expect to be here.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if we set an expectation and we don't, and we aren't prepared to always meet it, it's way worse.
I always say that about movies. Like, I hate people coming to me and telling me what a great movie it was, and you have to go see this, and it was just like changed my life. Because then I go see the movie and I'm so disappointed the movie didn't change my life. Where if you just said, hey, you should go see this movie, it was really good, then I go see it and I'm like, wow, that was a good movie.
Mm-hmm. It's even worse when they're sitting next to you and saying, oh, this part's the best.
Watching your facial reaction.
That's just annoying.
Yeah.
I appreciated that they kind of close with talking about the human and not just like the experience. So they say, and I wrote in the margin, like, your clients are creative, resourceful, and whole, because he says, you know, if you don't listen to your customer's thoughts to learn his needs and desires, you fail to give him what he needs as a product because you simply don't know what that need really is. Further, you reject him as a person. By not listening to him, you're saying his thoughts have no value. And I thought that was a great way to bring it home to, like, this is just people to people, like, communicating. It doesn't, again, like, I'm thinking about my role play Rumble group, for instance, right? A lot of the TCs come in to do this and they're so nervous because they're forgetting at the end of the day, this is just like their humanity talking to someone else's humanity. It's not like this thing, like we create this artificial wall in between us by not just treating someone like they're just like another human who has value. And I love that they kind of took it there at the end. It's just, this is just, and then they even say what they're really doing is giving their customers a symbolic hug. Like Andrew calls them by name, Leo pins a flower on them. Bill hunts out and listens to every customer from the loading dock to the president. Sally shines their shoes. Dennis opens the car door. What they're all doing is giving their customer a symbolic hug. People need to feel they belong to the group. I thought that was just a great reminder. Like, this is just a human trying to connect, like, to your tribe, and how are you pulling them into your tribe during the transaction?
Mm-hmm.
Keep thinking about just the total opposite. So there's a cake by me that has the best cake, like the cake, and people drive from like an hour and a half away to get a slice of cake, right? And like my team will only come to meetings at my house on Thursday and Friday because that's the days the cake place is open. They're like, no, it's not worth it to drive to your house if we're not going to get cake. But like, they literally have a sign hanging in this place that it's kind of like the soup Nazi. It's like, the sign says your opinion is not part of the recipe. And like, you know, and like, yeah, they just don't care. Like, they don't care, but the cake is that good. And you should, like, I'm always like, I really ticked at them about this, but you know, I'm not going to stop going to get the chocolate salted caramel cake, you know, like.
There's a sandwich place in Boston that I feel the exact same way about. I will like deal with the abuse every couple of months just to get that sandwich. And it's always these, like, sorry, I'm from Boston, but it's these snobby Harvard students who just think that they're so much better than you. And they drive me crazy, but that sandwich is so damn good.
I don't know if you see all my Red Sox gear here, so.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah, no, this is the first year in a long time we have not made the pilgrimage to the Holy Mother Church of Finland.
That's awesome. Yeah. One thing that I was thinking about, and it's kind of related to like, you know, knowing what you want and knowing who you are, but I was talking to my TC about this morning about how like, I think we're going to do a lot of things. We're going to provide a lot of service to our clients, and some things some people are going to really love and other people don't care about, and something, you know, and vice versa. Right. But the fact that we offer it is still going to be beneficial to everyone. So like we may send out a weekly recap email that someone's like, can you stop sending this to me? Like, I don't need this. But that's fine, because at least we offered it to them, and it could be half of the people are going to love it. The other half are going to think that it's dumb, and that's okay. And so I think sometimes we get so nervous about people's, at least on my team, they get so nervous about like, but they're going to be pissed off if I send them one more extra email. And I'm like, well, they can just say no, thank you. And then we can move on with our lives. Like, I think,
great point. Yeah.
yeah, like giving more is usually not the problem that people have. It's usually that we're not doing enough. And so how great would it be to have a review of like, they were too communicative. They talk to me too often. I would be so happy if we got that. I don't know.
They were too worried about my needs.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I don't know. That seems like the best like frustration to have.
Yeah. I think there's something too, maybe that, you know, when we have team members who think that way, like, are they, like, maybe you could just go through even the points, right? Like, are they connected to the vision? Like, do they know what the vision is? Are they connected to the service window? Do they know what our service window is? Like, how confident are they in their own ability to deliver on that service window? Like, there's probably an insecurity somewhere in our team members when they don't know how to deliver it. Like the guy, I think of Sally's, like the guy at Sally's wasn't like, quit telling me about your strawberries. I don't eat strawberries. You know, he's either going to buy them or not, but he's not mad that they offered the strawberries, you know?
Absolutely.
And if he was, he just wouldn't shop at Sally's, and Sally'd probably be fine with that. You know?
Yeah.
I think it really shows up if you have repeat customers or clients that you work with, because that consistency, and I got like the old school book. I'm probably the only one that has like the really old school book. So, but pages like you were referencing, Megan, and mine is like 113, 114, where they're really talking about the systems that's creating a minimum standard of performance. And I think it's that inconsistency that gets us in trouble, right? Like you said, like if we over communicate, as long as we do that every time and the experience is the same, then there's usually not a trouble. The problem comes is when we say we're going to do that every time, like we brought out, and then we don't. Yes. Or one time we do, one time we don't. And that inconsistency really starts the problems.
Yeah. I guess I hope it's like the opposite. It's like the first time you meet us, we do an okay job. And then if you come and then you're like, yeah, okay, they were good. And then you come back and they're like, wow, you guys are doing so much more, you know, like, and then you come back again, you know. I hope that each time we get to like impress you more, because hopefully it's been a couple years apart and we get to like kind of, you know.
I think it also becomes that thing though, of you've got to make sure that in your vision and in your bandwidth, you can do it, you know, like the and everything. I know my mom's UPS guy used to leave a little milk bone on top of every package. But every once in a while she'd have a different driver that wouldn't leave a bone, and then the dog would just lose its mind because it like the truck, and it was like, where's my bone? And so like my mom had to like go buy milk bones and like go put them out there before she brought the packages in.
Oh man,
that's funny.
Wow.
Can you imagine that review for UPS?
Like,
he didn't leave a milk bone.
Exactly.
you know, if the dog had thumbs and could type a review, he would.
He'd be mad.
See, mine's the opposite. He's such a snob. He's like, I don't think so. That tastes like cardboard. No, thank you.
The bacon strip or nothing.
Yeah, seriously.
Oh, boy.
What other things did you take away, or do you plan to re-envision for yourselves, your ops teams, implement, kind of like Angie said, she implemented the I've got to shoot that monkey right away, which was in the forward. Zach, you probably don't have because I was like in the modern forward from the 90s. I don't know what version you got. Anyway, what other things are you guys taking to your teams?
This is kind of a just a qualification or whatever to the surprise and delight campaign. So it's kind of like a, you know, really a reinforcement of that's a good thing to try to do. So we're starting that. I'm going to try to launch it December 1st if I'm organized enough. So
Love that.
My favorite line, I guess, quote, visions do only two things, they grow or they die. And when vision dies, it's customer service that gets buried. Really well put.
And it doesn't need to be the vision of the Rainmaker, right? We could have a vision for just our ops department. Like, it could just be the ops team that has a vision.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't have to be elaborate. I think that's why I loved the first one where he's like, it's carnations and make it a joy to shop here. It's like, seems random, but he's delivering. Like everyone gets a carnation and it's fun to be here. It's not like a paragraph, right? It's like, you can remember it, it's deliverable.
Yeah, you may not like the service or appreciate that, but you can't turn around and say they didn't do what they said they were going to do.
One thing I've been trying to do is just really, I found that when I, like you were saying, if it's the Rainmaker's vision or even my vision, it doesn't always work out. You know, just my excitement isn't always what works. But if I pose it to my team as like, hey, what could we do? Let's brainstorm. What if we did this? And then, you know, I had this, you know, I had this thought that we do something. It was like the worst. No, we can't do that. It's the worst idea. I'm so uncomfortable. All this stuff. Literally just this week, my TC emails was like, what if I called each of our clients? I was like, that would be so cool. I'm like, don't say it. Don't say I told you so. Don't say I told you so. Right. But just like kind of being the like encouragement, like, what could we do? Let's think about this together kind of a thing. Let's have a vision. Let's have a group vision instead of just like always feeling like it's something being imposed on you and like another task that is a burden, and really bringing them along with this, like, what would be amazing for our clients? What would make them a raving fan or whatever?
And you don't have to go, like he says, 1%, right? So you're looking at the end game, and they may take all these little baby steps and end up at the end game, yet allowing them to do all the baby steps and they get better and better and better, you still get to where you want to go.
Yeah.
And I think, like, especially with your agents as customers, I think the transparency about the path has helped me a lot. So I have a roadmap and it's like by quarter. And okay, this is the thing we're going to implement, whatever. And so then, like, when they go to family reunion or mega camp or whatever, and they come back and they're like, oh, we need to do this campaign and do this and this and this and this, I can go, okay, well, there's no room in Q3 for that. So is there something on Q3 you want to take off, or is, you know, and that kind of stuff. And that's sort of helps tamp things down. The other thing is, like, so we run everything in Airtable now. And so I have a Slack channel for Airtable requests, and they just dump stuff in there. And some of it, like, takes me 2 minutes to set up. Some of it's like a huge project or whatever. But then there's also, that's like, when it gets done, I respond back in there, okay, this is happening or whatever. And so I think that thing of, like, having a place to make these requests and having feedback on whether they're implemented, with why they're not, what the plan is for doing it, or sometimes it's just, oh, we're not going to do that, but you know.
Mm-hmm. No, I think I do. I often forget that last piece of like actually telling someone that I took care of it. And then they'll come back and ask again. And I'm like, oh yeah, I did that. I just put it over there. You know, but that, yeah, that last piece can be so helpful and powerful.
And I like laying out the plan too, Angie, because we can't do everything in a day, right? Yet if they see that it's coming and have an expectation around when it's coming, then they wait for it and they're excited for it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think some of that's that 1% thing too. Is like, oh, wouldn't it be great if it did this, or you know, whatever. So
Yeah. I mean, I use that with my Rainmaker all the time. I'm like, so I'm working on this, this, and this right now. Which one of those things do you want me to put on the back burner to take this new exciting project? And then he goes, oh, wait, never mind. We'll do that one next quarter. I'm like, cool, cool, cool.
It's better than, well, you'll just have to push it in there somewhere. gotta make it happen. Okay.
I love how energetic our conversation was today. So thanks for coming to book club, guys. Carry this momentum with your TCs next Tuesday. Paula's mastermind is the agent experience. So carry this forward where it's like not just you always giving the message. Send them to the Paula's mastermind and let her share some of this message with them as well. Paula, time is 3 p.m. Central, right?
Yep, correct. And for them to share it with each other too, right? It's not just me sharing, it's them sharing it with each other.
Powerful extension of our conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, gang. Oh, we did we decide? No, we were going to let everybody vote on next week's Let's Chat topic, right? We've got 2 minutes to do that.
Yep.
Yep.
Or we a couple topics so we can start filling out the year, but you're welcome to shout out your thoughts and what you would like us to discuss.
Yeah. You guys win because you're here. So you get to help us fill out the rest of the calendar for the year. What would be a powerful topic to mastermind around for you?
one that we've done in my top 200 group is we all got a lot out of was like all the automations, like how are people using Zapier and smart plans and Integromat and all of that kind of stuff. Just kind of how to hack your daily task list.
I got it down, wrote it. Automations.
Love it.
Is everybody on here switched over to the 12-week year, or is everybody just basing everything on a GPS?
I just found out yesterday we're moving to the 12-week year next year.
Okay. Yeah, because 12-week year would be interesting also to talk about, because it's a good time to be queuing it up for first quarter of next year.
Love that.
Just a side note, I kind of was bucking the system, and then Paula and I talked about it 6 months ago or so. So I dabbled a little bit for the first couple of months, and I saw the value, and I'm loving it. It's really separating my yearly goals into 4 categories, basically, of I can do it now, here, here, here. And it's allowed me to hone in a little bit better for myself. I'm just here a year, so maybe that's more appropriate for my setup, but it's really been great if you want to look into 12-week year. I've loved it so far.
I've been doing it personally for my personal stuff, but we were still doing 411s and everything. But I found out yesterday we're going to change. So
Okay.
Cool. So system automations, 12-week year. What else?
What other ideas you guys got that would be powerful topics for y'all?
Leads always are great. So new lead programs, kind of like this year, I feel like was focused in on the golden. the golden letter, the golden text, the golden walking, all of the goldens. Is there some new deal for this coming year? The platinum plan?
The platinum. Yes. Please make it.
Okay.
Maybe
so
we
market
can
of
come
the
up
moment.
with the platinum.
Yeah,
plan
maybe.
next
Let's
week.
come up with a new one. Yeah.
So what are we calling this?
The platinum plan.
Okay.
Platinum lead gen.
It's kind of like market of the moment. Like, how can we go get listing appointment opportunities? Is that what I'm really hearing you say? Like, gold letter was
Yeah.
around how do we go get listings? for
Yeah,
the-
basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So how do we generate listings?
When I was a teacher and the district would come up with some new model. And so you would have to take all your lesson plans and convert them into whatever this new framework was. And then 2 years later, they'd hire a new consultant that had a different framework, and you'd have to take the lesson plan and make it fit in this new framework. And, you know.
Oh, and I have one more also.
Family reunion. Oh, what's the thing we're all doing now? So.
I want to rewrite the promise script. Sorry. It's so clunky. Paul and I talked a lot about that last week also, but the promise script is so clunky. It feels so weird. It feels outdated.
I could help you deliver it less clunky. The promise script is the dance floor. You don't have to deliver it line by line or not interject other words. It's just the floor defined.
Yeah, I know. It just seems so unnatural.
And I think that's a hard topic for a group because like we talked about, you want to put it into the language of your team.
Yeah.
So everybody's going to have a different team language.
Yeah.
We could do it though. I mean, we could talk about just, how do you turn it into a dance floor versus like a rote.
Yeah.
It's not intended to be like a rote delivery, just like any script really.
Maybe we could get a special guest to speak at that one.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. Who would we have do that?
Yeah, exactly.
All right, we'll figure that out.
The role play rumble?
Coach, maybe?
We also have clients, right? who are getting-
We all know Megan's brilliant at that, so a different perspective I think would be good.
Yeah, I think a client would be a great.
We've
like
heard
somebody who-
enough from her.
Yeah. Okay. You know what I'm going to say, but let's hear a client who's getting a great return on the promise. Now, everybody sounds different when they deliver the promise because it's a dance floor. So just keep that in mind. Like your delivery would be slightly different than theirs, but.
And I know we're a little bit over, but I do want to these are great topics. So I appreciate that's 4. So we'll fill those out. Real quick survey. Do you like it when we bring someone in to present that maybe does it as a high level? Is that helpful? And then Mastermind.
Have we had anybody come in?
Oh yeah, we've had a few.
Oh, I
people.
guess I've missed those.
Different topics we let someone else present. Is this like we like it, we don't like
Well,
it?
we have not delivered very well. So let's restate that question. Is that something you would like in the future going forward then?
Oh, yes, I would love that.
Okay.
That's one of the things I told my people that I want them working on is, figuring out who are your people in the KW universe that you reach out to because you know that they're the people for this or that. So.
And what's our book club? We settled on one, didn't we, for December?
Yeah. So To Sell is Human by Daniel Pink.
What? To Sell is Human?
Yeah.
That's going to be a spicy one. I can't wait. Spicy
Spicy.
conversation.
Should be so good. So that one will be on December 1st. That's when we'll be covering that one.
Okay.
Hey, gang.
Bye, everybody.
See y'all next week.